So let me start by saying I'm American, okay? And I love my country. I'm very fortunate to be living in the USA. At the same time, I can see why a lot of other countries kind of look at Americans as, some ignorant and greedy, spoiled mother. But for all those people who look at us that way, understand that American people are victims just like the rest of the world outside the US. We just don't get on as bad as everyone else does. But we are all victims of the US dollar and fiat currency in general. And the powers that be care no more about the American people than anyone else. They don't care about anything but power and control. It's just that American people have the benefit of living in the country that has the world reserve currency, so there are some indirect benefits there. Now, the dollar is in an extremely dominant position, obviously. The question, though, is if the dollar is destroying the world economy. Or I guess you could also say, has it already destroyed the world economy? And before I dive deeper into this, quick reminder, subscribe. Tag economy is growing super quick, and we'd love to have you as a part of our community. So let's start this by just talking about the strength of the dollar, okay? The US has printed more money than anyone, especially the last 15 years or so, yet the dollar remains strong. But those of us who are in the know understand that money printing leads to inflation, which typically leads to the weakening of a currency. And inflation is definitely hitting us. I mean, any American can attest to that fact. But it's not as heavy as it should be, right? It should be hitting us even harder. And on top of this, how in the hell is the dollar still so strong after all this printing? The simple answer is that the dollar has a monopoly like hold on the economy. And because of this, the US and the dollar get away with a whole lot more than any other country. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean in just a minute. And this is really mind blowing stuff. But first, let's just talk briefly about why the dollar is so dominant. Okay. So, first things first, we said this earlier, it's the global reserve currency. Okay. Central banks across the globe hold a significant portion of their reserves in the dollar. This dominance provides the US with a boatload of economic and financial advantages. And a large portion of international trade and financial transactions are conducted in dollars, right? Even between countries that do not use the dollar domestically. Now, imagine that. Major commodities, of course, you got oil, gold, and many others, are priced and traded in dollars on the global market. So this means that changes in value of the dollar can have a direct impact on global commodity prices. So one of the most well planned out moves was when the US left the gold standard in 1971. Absolutely massive move that shaped everything that we see today. So soon after we left the gold standard, we got Saudi Arabia to agree to price oil in dollars, and this is commonly known as the petrodollar system. And of course, Saudi Arabia was well taken care of for that, right? Their nation has prospered since this deal was made back in the 1970s. And by no mistake, the same family who was in charge back then is still in charge now. No, huh? Funny how that stuff works. So many other countries also issue debt in dollars. Now, this creates a vast market for US Treasury securities, considered one of the safest investments. And these are some of the bigger reasons that the dollar is so dominant. But of course, you also have things like, the US financial market depth and liquidity and things like that. The safe haven status, right? Guess where everyone flocks to in times of global economic uncertainty? You probably guessed it, the dollar. Hopefully not for long, with precious metals and Bitcoin on the rise right now, going on a serious run. You, fiat currency, we're coming for you. And with all of this flocking to the US dollar, of course, the US government can and does leverage the dominance, right? One of the big ways they do this is through imposing economic sanctions. And these sanctions can be extremely powerful, and that's due to the global reliance on the dollar for trade and transactions. I mean, are you starting to see why a lot of these other countries kind of look at Americans as a bunch of heads? I guess I don't I don't necessarily blame them, but at the same time, I want those people to realize it's not the American people. Actually, most American people are totally oblivious to what's going on. Anyways, you can probably see how the dollar has a monopoly-like hold on the economy. And it's definitely not surprising to me to see, BRICS forming to try and fight the dominance of the dollar. And honestly, I don't blame them either. I don't blame them at all. Of course, as an American, my country comes first, and I want my country to be on the forefront. But the empathetic side of me also feels for the other countries, and we're getting shit on too. So I want to go back to how the dollar has stayed strong for so long, even with all this money printing we've been doing, especially for the last 15 years or so. And this part is really mind blowing because in addition to all the advantages we just talked about, the United States also has the unique ability to print money like crazy and kind of let the negative effects of that money printing drain out to the rest of the world instead of staying solely in the United States. So let me explain what I mean. And I wish I could credit whoever explained it this way because I love this picture it paints, but I forget his name. I think it's Brent something. But anyways, so imagine every country out there has a pool, right? A large pool. And in this pool, the more inflation that is brought to the country, the more that pool gets filled up. Okay, it keeps getting filled up with more and more inflation. When the pool is all the way filled up and it overflows, basically everything breaks at that point. That's basically the signal for hyperinflation. Well, the United States has a unique pool. Okay, at the bottom of the United States pool, there's a drain. And this drain at the bottom of the pool filters out to the rest of the world, right? Who rely so heavily on the dollar. So think of this drain at the bottom of the pool with tons of pipes, like kind of just going out in all different directions to all these other countries' pools. So all these other countries print money, right? And their pools fill up, but their pools are also filled up when the US prints. And of course, the United States also benefits from this because their pool gets filled up less since the inflation is being drained out to the other countries through that drain system, right? And this puts the United States at an advantage in another major way. So the question is this actually destroying the world economy? So let's look at the ways that this could be really hurting the world economy and possibly destroying it. So first, a strong dollar can lead to capital outflows and currency devaluation in emerging markets, which can trigger economic crises. In addition, changes in U.S. interest rates and monetary policy can have immediate and profound effects globally. This also creates trade imbalances. A strong dollar can make exports from other countries more expensive and then imports into these countries cheaper, potentially hurting their domestic industries. Don't forget that many countries borrow in US dollars, right? So if the dollar strengthens against their local currency, it becomes more expensive to service this debt, which leads to financial distress and potential defaults. Now, just think back to that drain system and how unfair that makes all of this. If I was another country, I'd be screaming. I'd be like, this is some bull. And it's definitely not fair, one bit. And over reliance on the dollar can lead to a dependency trap where, economies are so intertwined with the US dollar that they just can't easily diversify or develop independent economic strategies. There's also such a strong reliance on the dollar that any major crisis in the US economy or significant type of policy shift can trigger a global financial crisis. Now, of course, you also have the argument for the other ways too, right? So there's going to be people that argue that the dollar provides a stable reserve currency that facilitates international trade and investment, which contributes to global economic stability. And people also say stuff like, using a common currency like the dollar, of course, in international trade reduces transaction costs and simplifies financial processes. That the dollar or any reserve currency provides a reliable medium of exchange and store of value for countries all around the world. And then that the dollar's role as global reserve currency can be crucial in times of financial crises, providing a safe haven and liquidity for countries in distress. So, with all that said, what's your view? What side would you pick? I really want to know, is the dollar helping or destroying the world economy? Comment below. I want to hear your view. I think I know already, but I want to hear it. And look, let's be totally transparent here. Like I said earlier, Americans are getting screwed too. Don't forget that part of it, right? It's kind of like this catch-22 because the United States does benefit from the dominance of the dollar. So indirectly, I mean, Americans are benefiting from what's going on. But at the same time, Americans are still getting screwed by the powers that be, just like everyone else. We are just getting kind of screwed less than the rest of the world because of that whole indirect benefit from the dollar's dominance, since we live in the motherland, so to speak, of the dollar. But look, when it comes down to it, these people, they don't care about the American people any more than the people of any of the other countries. We as American people are just kind of getting that indirect benefit. So make no mistake, they will trample us to the first chance they get. You better believe that. These mother truckers, dominance and control, that is their only concern. So again, make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what you think on this topic. Personally, I think it's not just the dollar that's destroying the world economy, it's fiat currency. And the dollar is just happens to be the head of fiat currency right now. It's the world reserve currency, but I just think it's fiat currency destroying the world economy. So you could say yes, the dollar is destroying the world economy, but in general, I think it's just the fiat currency in general is destroying the world economy. But I think we're starting to see that as people. Bitcoin's on the rise, precious metals are on the rise. People are starting to see that fiat currency doesn't work. But again, I want to know your thoughts. Comment below. Let me know. Subscribe. Talk to you soon.